Congratulations! You have found WrestleShoot, hosted by the Wild Thing Rob Wilds and the ladies' man Chris Casanova. Combined, we have 40 years of wrestling experience, and we're here to share those experiences, stories, and knowledge with you over the podcast airwaves. We'll be joined by friends of ours from time to time to share their stories and experiences with you as well. So climb aboard the crazy train we call WrestleShoot. We know how to do it, and we do it real well.
Oh, yeah, baby. I love that song. Welcome back to WrestleShoot, boys and girls. I know it's been a minute since we've been here, but we thought that we would make our first show of 2024 one for the books.
It's been like 10 years.
What's that?
It's been like 10 years.
since we did our last show?
Yeah, 10 years.
Now, you're thinking about 10 years since I used to do WrestleShoot with Porter on cable TV.
Oh, that's probably what it is, yeah.
We've only been gone a couple of weeks. But Chris is joining us to make an announcement about the future of WrestleShoot.
Yes, very excited. Very excited about this. Today is our official first day that we are syndicated on the Monty and Pharaoh show.
Wait, syndicated?
Yes.
Aw, that's it?
Yeah.
I thought we were taking over, man. I was ready to ramble those motherfuckers today.
Oh,
we're just
damn.
Oh, all right.
Come on.
No, man, I goddamn love Monty and Pharaoh. What a day indeed, sir. What a day.
What a day.
So, now that we're going to officially, now we're not live streaming there right now because it wasn't added yet. So we're going to have to do the recording and give it to them and blah,
right.
Blah, blah. Next week, God damn it, we'll be syndicating over. And I've heard some of those guys from the Monty and Pharaoh network are planning on doing a run in. Oh, shit.
Well,
oh, yeah.
Oh.
Guess who's here?
Go after Rob first.
So what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Monty and the Pharaoh family. It's great to have you guys with us. Should be some fun times.
Well, thanks, man. It's nice to see you here today. You know, I heard that somebody else was coming in, and he reminded me of somebody.
Uh-oh. Look out. Look. Oh, damn.
Here we go. The
player.
Now, he calls himself the player, but I look at him and I think, Beetlejuice.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, check out that shirt today. Check out that shirt.
Showtime.
It's the shirt, man. And then
Eddie, show it off.
The shirt.
Damn, man.
Damn. We're getting black. I love that shirt.
Hey, guys.
Mr. Sebastiano, what's going on, Dan?
Another day. Just finished another show. My back's hurting me. We just finished another show, so of course I'm sore from Carrie and Benny. But other than that, we
we've been doing it for 3 years. Should be used to it by now.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You were shooting up during that last show, and you're still not nodding out. Way to go!
I've been carrying Chris for 20 years, so I get it.
We'll have to carry, man.
Yeah.
So check out those chops.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some wrestling. What I'd like to talk about, and Chris kind of brought this up, and I feel like we maybe beat this topic to death, but fuck it, let's keep beating it. Why does wrestling suck so bad today? Who wants to go first?
Where do you even start with that?
Right.
Corporate involvement, lack of quality independence, that are in. Like the smaller markets. There's so many little things. The lack of storytelling, the lack of finishers. Where do you want to go? The endless reasons why.
Well, let's maybe start off with what I consider the most recent paralyzing blow to wrestling, and that's Billy Corgan getting into the business. taking over the reins of NWA, making a big thing about how he's going to be the only real NWA, and then immediately does a sniffing cocaine angle on TV and loses his TV deal. Billy Corrigan, despite all your rage, you're a dipshit.
I'm not saying he should have gone so extreme, but let's face it, there is worse stuff that's happening on network TV every day. Rapes, drugs, you get killed, murders, all that type of stuff. Wrestling is a shoot; it's a work anyway. I could see a wrestling show having some more adult entertaining angles and stuff, but it was not the appropriate time for it.
To me, him doing cocaine, even whether it's fake, which, I mean, let's be honest, anybody who's done cocaine knows that wasn't fake. That was a shoot that he was doing up on there. But just take that aside. It had about the same class level as seeing a live blowjob on a soap opera.
Have you seen one, Rob?
I mean, only when you and me are watching the soaps together, all cuddled up. But that's a whole different thing. Hey, kayfabe, man, kayfabe.
What's kayfabe? That's gone. That's the first thing that's wrong with
wrestling. Yeah, there's another one. Gone.
Hey, maybe one of the other things is maybe it's the wrestlers are a lot cleaner, not having as much fun and partying, and getting to know each other is good. Because let's face it, they were on the road together forever. Now they literally work 3 days a week now.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, though. I don't know where you guys grew up. I grew up on Long Island, New York. And I mean, I'm old enough that, in my 20s, I lived 15 minutes from the Nassau Coliseum. There was a show every month. I went every single month. I live in right outside of Tampa now. They might be there twice a year. I think there's just a level of detachment because we can't go every month because it's not there. And I think there's, you're not as emotionally invested when you can't make that trip every month and see these guys.
But that was also a chain reaction of events throughout wrestling's history that led to when you had an opportunity to go to a show every month, that was just kind of the standard quo. Oh, look, wrestling's here. It's cheap. Let's go watch the big stars. So if that same opportunity was put out there, say in Tampa, you could see a big show every month with stars, would they come? Because it's not the status quo anymore.
It could. I don't think it could be priced reasonably enough that somebody could go every month.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that'd be the biggest problem. I think people would they don't care anymore. I mean, if you I had a guest on Dan. We had a guest on Dan and Benny in the Ring. His name is George Shire, and we asked him the question that if you took when wrestling had territories and there was 30 territories, and each territory had their own TV show. If you took the sum total of all the viewership on all those all those TV shows, it's got to be 10 times or 15 times what what the viewership is now just on for Raw and SmackDown, and throwing AEW for good measure. It's devolved.
They estimate at its you see the number thrown around sometimes. They estimate at its peak, territory wrestling had about between 30 to 40 million people a week watching wrestling at some point.
Now, do you think if the U.S. was divided up into, like, say, 5 territories, do you think there would be enough viewership in those independent territories to support a smaller network of wrestling now?
Good question. That's a question that Mr. Casanova has posed to me a million times. What's your thoughts on that, Cass?
I think so, honestly. Get some bad connection here. Yeah, 100%, man. I think their viewership would be skyrocket because a lot of those territories are very, very loyal to each other, and the viewership will be extremely high. So yeah, I agree.
So you could have like a Northeast champion, a Southwest champion, and then have an overall champion of all of them that maybe and with the day and age we are with media, you could do something on a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel, Rumble, something like that.
But would Bruce? They'd each have their own TV shows and their own events, correct?
Yeah,
absolutely. They actually integrate.
So in a way, what we're really doing is going back. We're going back to the territories. Instead of 25, absolutely. We have 5. But I mean,
are there in this day and age? Is there really a handful of promoters that's got the stones enough to take this country and force it back to territories and hold off all the smaller renegades who are naturally going to want to challenge. Now,
well, and the other part to that is, though, when there were territories, there was no social media, so that you could have a guy wrestle in a territory for 6 to 9 months and go to the next territory, and he comes in as an unknown. They might even give him a new name. I'll give you a great example. Bob Orton Sr. came into the WWF as Rocky Fitzpatrick. Nobody knew who the hell he was. But now, now that couldn't happen. Everybody is going to know who the guy is.
But we look at that with NXT anyway. Once they come over to WWE out of NXT, a lot of times they change the gimmick, they tweak it, they make it a little different. So the curtain's kind of been pulled back on that. Somebody could go into a different territory and have a different gimmick, I think.
Well, which brings up the next logical question. Is there putting Pandora back in the box for the fans to allow themselves to experience that shock and awe?
In my opinion, no.
Yeah, honestly, I think it'd be easier than people think. What they have to do is, it's no different than television or movies today. How many times have you seen a TV show or a movie series or something that goes off the rails and then kind of comes back and gets itself again? Look at the Fast and the Furious. Just had, speaking of wrestling with The Rock, it went from a legit movie about drag racing to they're in space fighting super soldiers. Like, all wrestling would have to do is take itself seriously, present itself as a real legitimate athletic competition and product, which would mean stories and characters and matches you could get behind. And the wrestlers, this goes to what Benny and I just did our show about, the wrestlers would have to stay the hell off social media. Even if they wanted to keep a persona, if they kept a kayfabe persona and they stopped talking to people like your Dave Meltzers, where I could go online and tell you exactly who's going to win next week before I go to the show. And if there was a legit element of surprise, I think fans would suspend their disbelief. You look at all this stuff behind me, I know dragons and magic and all this shit's not real, but
wait, what?
I can still enjoy it. Well, maybe not the dragons you guys see when you're at home by yourselves, but I know I can suspend my disbelief and I can enjoy it. Even though I know wrestling isn't real, I've watched matches where my brain has turned itself off and I'm enthralled the way I was when I was a kid, thinking this is a legit athletic competition. And you get that feeling like you did with real sports. And I hate using the word real, but you know what I mean. But I think with a little work, I think it would happen. It's just the problem is people think it's gone, so they'll never make the effort.
Yeah.
Dan, do they have to reinstitute good versus evil, though? Do you think that's important?
I think it's important to actually have real good and evil. Look at, I hate beating him up because I talk about him a lot, but look at like AEW. Samoa Joe is a heel, Swerve Strickland is a heel, and they are the two biggest baby faces on that roster. You shouldn't be the villain that gets cheered because you're cool or whatever. You have to have that teetering line where you can be a villain and still be the guy, like the promo Jinder Mahal cut against The Rock. People wanted to jump the guardrail and punch him in the mouth because, boo this foreign heel. Yes, I think if you had clear good and evil and actually presented it as such, it'll definitely be an important first step. But if you imagine having Bruno against Stone Cold Steve Austin, where Bruno is supposed to be the hero everyone likes, but half the crowd's cheering for the villain who's beating him up, no, it wouldn't work.
Well, this day and age, the network TV does not allow that controversial of a character anymore. So you can't have those heels that we had back in the 80s that were just so anti everything. Or I don't think you could get away with like an Iron Sheik or even a Nikolai Volkov nowadays. Where you'd have somebody from like North Korea. So unfortunately, we're at it for some reason in wrestling. Playing a character is different than being on a television show and playing a character.
I think what you need to do is to kind of like something you see a lot in action movies today, especially comic books and movies that try and be deeper, is they'll have a villain that is maybe morally right. If anybody's seen like Black Panther, for example, the villain in that movie was right. We have the ability to make people's lives better. It's selfish of us to not help the world. but you can't agree with the villain. So at some point, he randomly murders his girlfriend and tortures a guy just to remind you this is the bad guy you're not supposed to associate with. You're right. The clear cut, Iron Sheik, clear cut, foreign America to it may not work, but you could have somebody like a Swerve Strickland that people like and periodically remind them this guy is evil without completely destroying the mantra of he's still cool or you may agree with what he's doing.
Yeah. Oh, brother.
So who do you think was the first cool heel to cheer for?
Stone Cold.
Well, actually,
I'd say Macho Man.
I say Stone Cold.
Jake Roberts, first one I remember.
Superstar Billy Graham.
Yes, Billy Graham's a good one.
Yeah,
but remember, I'm a little younger than you guys. Jake Roberts and Macho Man's another good one. He was the first one I really remember being like, this guy is awesome. I love everything about him while he's beating up women and doing all these using a snake to attack people. But it was just so cool. I couldn't get, and this was 85. I couldn't get past that. Well,
the problem that Rick Rude had was they had to start piping in booze because people were starting to love him so much. Real quick though, I want to hit back on the suspension of disbelief thing that you touched on earlier, because it falls back to, and this is going back to old school, but the Fit Finlay. I was watching Fit Finlay all the way back when Steven Regal was breaking in and Giant Haystacks was wrestling Big Daddy, and Fit Finlay was jumping all over the European territories. He was never changing his name, and he would show up and people would be like, oh my God, I don't have any idea who you are. But they did know who he was when he was fucking in WCW and then in WWF. It was F, right, Chris, when he broke in?
Yeah.
Yeah. But all that time, you know who this guy is, but you tell yourself you don't because you want to believe the story. So if we're breaking back the territories, is it really so infeasible now that the fans could do that suspension of disbelief and just kind of go with it?
Rob, I think they can. As long also you can also integrate promotions. What they used to do back in the day too is the champ used to come over there. Like World Class was notorious for that. Ric Flair would work on the World Class, and it would bring so many viewers over there. So yeah, I think they can do it.
It would just have to be under a bigger umbrella.
Yeah,
I don't think you could do it. I think you would have to have national coverage before you broke it up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's get into a whole different territory. So let's move on, because national coverage. What do we know about national coverage? We're just fucking podcasters, I tell you. What do you think, Beetlejuice? Did you watch the old school UK stuff, man? Big Daddy and Haystacks and all those good dudes. The
when you said Beetlejuice, I was thinking of that thing when he had like a number. It was like 6 billion, and the guy with the shrunken head next to him had like the number 3, and somehow he swerved. The guy had to switch in the numbers. That was great. Now, what was the question?
I said, were you into the back in those days into the UK scene, the Rasputin?
No, not really the UK scene. No, I grew, like I said, I grew up in Long Island. 70s was all WWF, and then in mid 70s we got NWA Hollywood, so wrestling from the Olympic. We could catch that on UHF, and then after that, we started getting Georgia Championship Wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling, World Class, Southwest, and then eventually AWA. That's the thing that really kills me, that now you have to decide, whether you're in Camp WWE or Camp AEW. Like, I was watching 8 wrestling shows a week, and I love them all. Like, why do you feel that, now you have to align yourself with one of the products? And I don't get that.
I remember when Bagwell was the handsome stranger boy, and I thought he was
Global Wrestling, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Okay, Chris, best AWA champion ever, go.
Zbyszko.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Martel. Shit.
Bockwinkel.
No, I'm going to say Zbyszko.
Bockwinkel.
They were in the toilet when Zbyszko was. They were circling the drain when Larry was the champion. That was the very end.
It was the same thing with Kurt Henning's reign.
Yeah. Plus, he was Vern's son-in-law.
That's right.
But he was. I mean, still a great champion, though.
Yeah, but
Nothing
you watch Hennig grow
like
in that. Hennig cut his teeth there, and you watch him go from that championship with Big Scott Hall, and then going to the singles, and really him and Bockwinkel putting on that show, and it was right time, right place. He was bound for that WWF, and I was surprised he never got a bigger championship run there.
So I got a question for you guys, though. I mean, speaking of Bockwinkel, in 1983, when Hogan was in the AWA, and there was this huge buildup, and I think it was at the St. Paul Civic Center, and I think it was like February of '83. It was him against Bockwinkel, and sold out, 23,000 people. Everybody thinks Hulk's coming home with the title. He does. He gives the leg drop. He pins Bockwinkel, and then of course they do the dusty finish, and they give. Right. And you hear like 23,000 people shouting bullshit. And fast forward 3 or 4 years later, when Hulk is selling out WrestleMania with Andre the Giant and AWA, I think on the same day they were playing at like some Catholic church, with maybe drawing 500 people. So obviously Vern Gagne didn't make the right call.
No.
Yeah. I think it would have been the right call had Hulk had really the wherewithal to show he was going to stick around. But
yeah, I mean,
he never did.
Yeah, I think eventually Vince would have wooed him away anyway, but
Hulk at AWA, as I understand it from some of the guys like Jannetty and whatnot who were around that same time, is that he didn't have any brand loyalty. He was just like, pay me, brother, which I get it, dude. Fuck yeah. What do we say to promoters, Chris? Screw you, pay me. That's it. Get paid.
Vince paid Hulk to no show the rest of his dates.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Hulk went pro wrestler. Fuck you.
Hulk was in it for Hulk.
Yeah.
Good for him. Perfect. I'd have done the same thing.
Hulk was for Hulk.
No, I watched that interview. Did you see that interview with King Kong Bundy a few years ago where he was talking about Vince only paying Hulk Hogan $500,000 for WrestleMania 1 and Hulk walking in and saying, where's the other half? And getting the check out right then and there?
Well, it's just like the story that Bad News tells about Warrior at Mania 6 when Jim goes, Vince wants to know what I want to make for Mania. What do I tell him? He said, how much is Hogan getting? Hogan's getting $1 million. But tell him you want $1 million. And he said, really? You don't think he'll say no? Okay, he'll say no. He'll make you a counter. And Jim went there and said, I want $1 million. He said, okay. A closed mouth don't get fed.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Nope.
You can only say no.
That's right.
Well, and then when me and Chris were promoting shows back in the day and wrestlers had that it doesn't hurt to ask attitude, I'd say, go ask Chris. I already know what he's going to say.
Nope.
I've heard you a couple of times go, what? Get away from me. Then go about your business. Now, Chris, let's try the AWA thing again. Chris, who's the best AWA champion ever?
I'm still going with Zbyszko, man, because it was Zbyszko.
All right. I didn't want to do the
joke. Because Bockwinkel was.
Shut up. I'm not talking to you now. Next, moving on. Diesel, take over.
All right. The only champions I got to see were the Zbyszko, the Bockwinkel, Lawler, and Hennig. And my favorite wrestler out of all those would be Hennig, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So,
I would just also I don't know if you guys can see this on camera, but the one of the first sets of wrestling figures.
He's got Larry Zbyszko and Ric Flair.
He wasn't even called Larry Zbyszko. He was just listed as AWA challenger to the Ric Flair figure.
Oh wow!
And awesome. The fact that it was produced by the same people that made He-Man, just a coincidence to the body types.
I love those Remco figures.
This is what Ric Flair looked like back then.
I'll tell you, Chris, I brought up in a meeting with the Monty and the Pharaoh Network guys earlier, we want WrestleShoot action figures.
Wow.
That's going to be my pose, my action figure pose.
It's like that?
Yep. And then you can do this.
Okay.
So my arms will do this, and your arms will do this.
Okay.
And we'll call it something or other. I don't know.
Yeah, we're just kicking around some ideas for some different merchandise for people. So I think that would be a fun one. 3D printing is getting less and less expensive, and that's something that we can definitely look into in the future.
Yeah, you thought I was kidding, didn't you? No, I really want WrestleShoot action figures.
Oh, so do I. That's why I put it on there. I think it would be a pretty cool thing. So that we have the
See, Brock
different themes. We have
man.
each show has its own version of the figures. So
How about urinal cakes? That would be a great product.
How about what?
Urinal cakes.
With Chris's face with his mouth open. Perfect.
There you go.
Perfect.
Wow.
And then after we get some WrestleShoot action figures, we're going to make some Ghosted action figures for me and Doug Damien. And my figure will still do this.
No, we got to do different pose, different show.
No, it's still
Yes.
me. I'm going to have the hat. I'm going to have the fucking hat. And God, I got nothing. Jesus, I suck.
Does the hat come off?
So you have to realize Dan and Benny always have unique shirts, so that they, we got to have lots of versions of each of them. Either that, or they have to have shirts that are interchangeable stuff that comes on and off.
Yeah, like
You know,
the figures nowadays that come with 2 or 3 different hands and heads. Mine and Benny's figures can come with 2 or 3 different shirts.
Exactly. I think that's a good idea. We gotta look
Buy
into
the
this.
accessory pack.
With mine,
So
hookers are sold separate.
So in one pack, I could have both the Ghosted and the WrestleShoot Rob Wilds.
Call it limited edition.
But then I'm only selling one action figure, and I want to sell 2. So
You're not gonna get very many sales.
wow, what a horrible thing to say. What are you going to do? Your Casanova gimmick and your you want it tight, you fruit?
I still have them all pulled out.
Well,
Do you
plus,
really?
if we know whoever has a 3D printer, they can print them on demand instead of having to print out a bunch of them.
Chris, go buy a 3D printer. That's going to be your new assignment.
If I do Simon, go buy a 3D printer.
Yep, it's on you. Bleachers sold separately.
Wow.
Thought you would appreciate that one.
Ooh, bleachers sold separately.
Bleachers sold
Love it.
separately, son of a bitch. So that means he's going to have a double Doug Damien thing too. Doug Damien, the co-host of Ghosted, and the Bleacher Master himself. Okay. That one was a swing and a miss. So let's go ahead and go with an old classic. Dan, give me your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, baby. Now, I know your first instinct is to put me on that list, but leave me off and move forward.
Are we talking just period or like managers, wrestlers? What are we doing?
Yeah, whatever you want, man. In
Anything.
general.
Favorites?
All right. Well, shoot.
Come back to you.
No, I mean, really, you got to look at the legends of the business. So, I mean, you got to have you'd have Glacier, the Christmas Creature, probably the Brooklyn Brawler, and Spike Dudley. If I was to pick 4, but I forgot about the Yeti.
Great,
Yeah. In all seriousness, I would cheat and pick the big 3 and my personal longtime favorite. So you got to go with Bruno. You got to go with Thez. You got to go with, I'd have to flip a coin between Buddy Rogers and Gagne for third.
Okay, call it in the air for Buddy Rogers. Heads or tails?
Heads.
It is Rogers.
All right, so Buddy Rogers and Andre. That would be my 4.
Wow, that's a very unique 4 there.
That is the most original that I've heard so far.
Wow. That's like old school too, like going back years and years. Not.
I am a little disappointed that you're in your original 4. You skipped the gobbledygooker, but that was a good one. But hey, Benny, what you got? Playa?
I'm gonna say Bruno. I'm gonna say Harley Race. I'm gonna say Ric Flair. Bruno, Harley Race, Ric Flair. I'm gonna say Terry Funk. And I'm going to have an honorary mention for the Ding Dongs. Can't forget them.
How about throw the McGurger twins in there while we're at it? All righty. So what you got, baby?
All right. Well, I look at it in 2 different ways. My personal favorites would probably be Hogan, Road Warrior Animal, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Kurt Hennig. Now, Mount Rushmore of greats would have to go Bruno, Ric Flair. Influence-wise, probably The Rock, and that last one's really, really, it's really tough between Hogan and Austin there when it comes to long-term influence. So it would be somewhere between those 2, but I'd have to lean towards Hogan because of longevity.
I would just like to point out that one of the sections of my office is decorated with all my many years of Hulk Hogan memorabilia. So he's always been my favorite because I kind of grew up in that era, being in my 40s. But I still would argue that the idea of a Mount Rushmore is the most important people. And without a Bruno or a Thez or people like that, Hogan would never have had a chance.
And I say we overlook that all the time. I mean, back in the 40s and 50s, wrestling was probably the hottest thing on TV. And we don't even talk about that now.
And how much of superstar Billy Graham's gimmick did Hogan rip off? Right?
The list would probably be shorter of what he didn't steal from Superstar.
Right.
He even managed to take the bad taste in women and the inappropriate comments too. That was nice.
All right. So that let's because we've probably got 15 minutes left. So let's fast forward then to the very thing that Iso brought up earlier is when I said, why does wrestling suck? And he's like, there's no psychology, there's no creativity, there's no storyline. But what it really boils down to, and I don't remember who exactly said it, is it's that they don't travel and party together anymore. That's when wrestling went to shit. These stupid drug tests and these stupid wellness rules they put out forced the boys from jumping in the car together and doing business on the road, hitting the bars, having a few drinks, working out some storylines, working out some angles. Because I tell you, as a promoter, what me and Chris would love the most was when a wrestler would come to us with a whole complete idea. Not just, yeah, dude, fucking me and Benny want to do a gimmick. Get the fuck out of here, man. No, come to us with something real. Give us a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then what's the encore? And that's what we would do on the road back in the days. We'd be riding in the car, playing stupid wrestling games like the license plate gimmick or the state signs gimmicks or any of that crap. But we'd also be talking about, so I'm thinking, Chris, that you and me could go out there tonight and do boom, 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 boom. So when we come back next month, it's really going to pop off. Then we move forward. We'll go talk to the boss about that tonight. And the boss is thrilled because we've already got how he's going to make money worked out. All he's got to do is say, okay.
Yep. I've heard stories of people, they're working on their promos in the cars, working on their facial expressions, footwork, everything. And that definitely doesn't happen nowadays. Now they walk in, they're given a script, told what to do by a producer, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's that lack of camaraderie. I don't want to say lack of camaraderie because they are all friends, but I think there's that's something missing.
No, I think Rob, Rob, I've never heard anybody say that before. And that is such a great point though, because we've had Davey O'Hannon on our show a couple of times, and all he talks about is like the road trips and, traveling 5 hours between shows, stopping at a shitty diner and, but talking about wrestling. And it was almost like, a correspondence course in the car. You have, you're traveling with maybe Bruno and Cicluna and Danucci, and like you're absorbing all this knowledge. Not only that, you guys like brothers. You spend more time with each other than you do your own family. And that is definitely missing.
That was a point I was just about to make was when, Iso goes, well, they're all friends now. Sure. Well, yeah. Okay. They're all friends now. Back when we did it, we were all brothers. Yeah. Even if we hated each other,
they're acquaintances now. They're not really friends.
Yeah. There was this cat. Oh yeah. In California that we all know, Chris knows how much him and I hated each other. But we were at a show somewhere along the Snake River. I think it was in Idaho. But we did the show. We didn't talk to each other. We rode up in the same van together, didn't talk to each other. He found himself having a little bit of funk with one of the town locals and 3 of his friends. Didn't matter that I hated Schizo. I threw my jacket off, walked up next to him and said, are we doing this? And he goes, oh, yeah, this is happening. And we threw down on those boys. And afterwards, we just went our own ways. But, friends, acquaintances, how they are now, I don't believe they have each other's backs like that unconditionally. But yet they're still going to go out there and put their lives in each other's hands and do this suicide run horrible performance that they think is main event 5-star worthy.
No storyline.
I think Benny touched on it perfectly. How many guests have we had on our show, and anybody that's ever done interviews, and that's all they talk about is I was the new kid sitting in the back of the car, like, grandpa telling war stories, just like a sponge absorbing everything. And
Hell
now
yeah.
you get guys today, and I don't mean to pick on anybody in particular, but you get guys like Hangman Page or Jack Perry that have done interviews and said, I don't need to listen to the old timers. I got this. Like, imagine walking into a locker room with, with Arn Anderson and Sting and Dean Malenko and Jerry Lynn and, who else was back there? Tully Blanchard and all these guys, and being like, no, I'm good. I spent a few weeks on my friend's backyard. I got this.
They're going to stretch your ass.
A lot of the crap. And you started, Rob, with the question of why wrestling sucks. A lot of wrestling sucks today because wrestlers don't know how to fucking wrestle. And sorry, am I allowed to curse on your show?
Yeah.
Fuck
Okay.
yeah.
Well, the wrestlers don't know how to fucking wrestle. And a lot of that is because they barely got trained, or heaven forbid they were self-taught. And there's no experience where they can absorb from the old timers because they're not on the road 300 days a year. Roman Reigns is the biggest name in wrestling and champion. He wrestled 11 matches last year, and they weren't all for the title. Like, could you imagine? I mean, fucking, we had guys on our show, Benny Bruno or Dominic, talking about him and Bruno on the road. They wrestle 11 matches before breakfast on Thursday.
Yeah. Right.
I did a story about Ivan Koloff, and I did some research. And between, like 75 and 85, and between his ages of like 35 and 45, which you're getting a little bit older then, he wrestled at least 250 matches a year and upwards of 300. So, I mean, these guys, even the younger guys, they're wrestling what, like maybe 50 matches. How are you going to get better without the repetition?
Chris, you remember we did I think, tell me if I'm getting this right. We had a wrestling school for a while too, where we intensely trained our guys. And we had Honky Tonk come on in town for a show we were doing. So we had him come run a clinic with the students. And we decided to open it up to some of the boys. And I don't remember who it was, Chris, but I remember somebody said out loud, "There's nothing that old man Honky has to teach me." And I think it was Mike Rain gave him 5 across the eyes. Do you remember that?
Yep, it was Mike.
And he was brand new, right out of wrestling school, man. That kid was brand new, but he came out on Brian Ward's last class. So he had that old school mentality. He heard somebody say, "I don't think old man Honky's got anything to teach me." You'd have thought somebody straight up took a dump in his mouth. He was so offended.
Yeah.
Pow! Mm-hmm. Do you remember who it was that he smacked? Was it Luxury?
I don't. It's probably one of the SPW guys, and I don't remember who it was.
Fair enough.
Probably one of the younger ones.
That goes back to right around that time moving forward. These kids are – now, Bret Hart once said, if you're not ready to go out and take a squash match after 3 months of training, you have no place in the business. Very, very true. But 3 months is not when you're done learning. That is, you should barely be dusting your feet off on the canvas on your 3rd month. You should have been doing weight training, cardio, and getting the shit slapped out of you on an actual mat on the ground outside the ring your first couple months. And that's what our kids got.
Yeah. Well, Marty Janae told me the same thing. You never stop learning in the business.
Ever.
But he should probably take his own advice and on his personal level, but that's a different story. But
and that goes right back to that kid that you guys remember Pogo the Clown, the wrestler, Joe Applebomber?
No.
Yeah, he was on XPW. We did some things. But anyway, big, huge guy, and he's got this reputation his whole career of being a bone breaker. He's just a big, giant, stiff, sloppy, slow bastard. But he's from our generation. So he understands the respect level have a respect level of the business. So we're sitting at this guy Earthquake show. And the doors come flying open, and this kid comes walking back, and he's wearing these round, I guess kind of like what I'm wearing, round sunglasses. He's got a suit on. He's carrying a little suitcase behind him on wheels. And he actually said when he walked in, "Where do the stars sit?" So that was already, we were just all chuckling at him. He looks at the booking sheet and sees that he is wrestling Apple or Pogo. God, was he Pogo or was he Apple Bomber at the time, Chris?
Apple Bomber.
Okay, so he's wrestling the bad apple from Hell's Kitchen, Joe Apple Bomber, in the third match. And he's furious. I was told I'm the main event, blah, 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 blah. And he went off to have an argument with the promoter. He comes back and he says, okay, who's Apple Bomber? Right there, you fucked up. You're in a veterans locker room and you don't know who one of the top heels back there are. So he says, well, what do you want to do? And Joe goes, well, I'm thinking we could do A, B, and C. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead. Okay, well, how about we do A, B, and C? No, that's stupid. We're not doing that. We're doing this instead. And Joe goes, look, we'll just figure it out in the ring, okay? The kid storms off to go find out what the finish is, and Apple leans in, starts tying his boot, and says, this kid is fucking dead. Now, Joe would put wrestlers in the hospital when he wasn't hot. So he went out there and he beat this kid without mercy. His finisher was a power bomb. Oh, wait, first he went to throw him over the top rope, but he held onto the back of his head, so his neck got wrapped up in between the ropes. So his feet were hanging outside the ring as Joe was just dropping rights and lefts to the side of this kid's head till he falls out and rips his ear. Joe gave him a power bomb, hard as shit, stood him up, gave him a sit-out power bomb, and the ring broke right in the middle.
Damn.
Canvassing ropes ripped, turnbuckle posts fell in as they sunk into this ring. And I was like, oh shit, Joe just killed him. So we all hit the ring. And we pulled Joe out, and he's getting his heat. He just walked away. The EMTs had to come pull the kid out of the actual inside of the ring and take him up out of there. And that was his last night, right, Chris? Last match?
Last match ever. Never saw him again.
Ever again. He went off to chump shit obscurity, which means he paid somebody to train him for those said 3 months, only to go get beaten to the hospital and realize I'll never be a pro wrestler. And that's the mentality the kids have coming out nowadays. I don't care what you say. Who the hell are you? Blah, blah, blah. Me. Let's do 19 finishes in one match. So not one of them mean anything.
Right.
We're not going to do any near falls. We're just going to go straight to pin. I just don't understand what happened.
Well, if you
where it went off the tracks.
if you know how to throw a super kick and can kick out at 2, you've learned about 50% of what you need to be a wrestler today.
And I'm going to do 3 Canadian destroyers in one match.
Yeah, I've brought it up on the show before. You know, you watch a match, and I talked about the suspension of disbelief. It's also your brain's logic, you know, your subconscious understanding. You know, I watch a guy get power bombed through 2 flaming tables, and that's not the finish. My brain remembers that, even if I don't want to. So next week, when I watch him in a regular match, I know he's not going to go down for any of the moves. And when he does, it doesn't look believable. Or even the little bits of bullshit. You're having a hardcore match, and you go under the ring, and there's a toolbox and you know a chair, okay, and then he pulls out a shopping cart and a trash can full of kendo sticks. What the fuck's that doing just laying around? Like, you know, your brain immediately goes, well, this is stupid. Even if you don't realize that's why you don't like it, it's because your brain wants to find logic, and uncanny valley is taking over wrestling.
Well, you know, Chris, what I would like to do tonight is go ahead and throw 3 power bombs on you. I'm going to hit you with 6 chairs and give you 4 pile drivers through 3 flaming tables each time. And then I'm going to take you out with my top hand wrist lock finisher. Okay.
Sure. How much you paying me?
Yeah, it's, $15 and a 6-pack of Coke. And
Sold.
if it's Roland Alexander, he'll take you out for a jumbo jack, maybe.
The one that always bothers me is if you flip once and land on somebody, it hurts. But then you flip twice and it hurts more. And now we're going to do like a 900-degree splash. And I don't know. It just makes no sense. I feel like we're in the Olympics. I'm going to hold up a card. It's a 10.
That's what I liked about RVD. I loved his frog splash because he always sold the bejesus out of his ribs. He always told me that was a work. I'm not convinced it always was. I'm sure he was fucking himself up because he hit that frog splash hard.
Oh yeah, there's no covering up, man. He would throw that.
But he only did it once. He sold it to himself. Oh God! And then he would get the pin, and people go crazy.
Pin, right?
Because it looks real. Ooh, you just beat your own ass to pin him, and you got the pin. That's believable. I mean, I love Hulk Hogan. I love what he's done for the business. But a leg drop? Really? Couldn't have thought of something better than that for as big as he was?
But at least people sold it.
Yeah.
True story. Well, we're kind of coming up to the end of our run for the night, so why don't we do some cheap, shameless plugs? Iso, get started with what you got for us.
All right. Well, first of all, we have the Monty and the Pharaoh show every Thursday at 9 p.m. on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And then before that, we have The 30. That comes on at 7:30 every Thursday night, and that features usually Benny, Dan, Joe Lowry, and Phil DeCesare, the president of Thursday nights. And that's a pretty cool game show where we ask a question to the panel, and based on their answers, they get a certain amount of points, and whoever has the most at the end of the night is crowned the 30 champion. And currently, we have one of those champions on the show. Co-champion this time. It's Dan Sebastiano down there.
Well, why don't you give us a quick example of how a round of this would go?
All right. Well, we would ask a question, say, Greg Valentine is in the news right now with all the stuff about Missy Beefcake. Hey, Dan, why don't you give me an idea on what you think? How's that going to affect his long-term legacy and wrestling in general? And then Dan would answer with some random facts, and I arbitrarily give points. And you know what? My demo account is open.
Don't answer for him. You asked him a question. You let him answer it, damn it. You ran out of time. Moving on.
It's very similar to the it's Around the Horn, the old ESPN show, except we talk about wrestling and we have better personalities. And if you guys want, spoiler alert, if I'm on the show, I'm winning. So that's usually how it ends up. The only way I lose my title is when Benny tricks me into not being on the show that week.
Benny's
I've done that. Yeah. I'm the Baron Cicluna of the 30.
Zabisco and Bruno have nothing on Benny and I turning on each other.
Nope.
Yes, and cheating and bribing the host is allowed.
Just like such is life. Playa, you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, we got Dan and Benny, which we actually wrapped up an episode right before this one. And then I do a true crime show. It's not on a regular rotation yet, but we've done our show episodes have been about Albert DeSalvo, Charles Manson. I don't know if you remember Ronald DeFeo, the guy who killed Amityville. And then our fourth episode was Tammy Sitch. And then next Monday is going to be Whitey Bulger, who terrorized Boston in the 70s and the 80s.
How the fuck did Tammy Sitch fit into this category of criminals?
She killed a guy.
Oh, Jesus Christ. She killed a guy. She's not Manson.
Hey, Tammy Sitch been convicted of more deaths than OJ, so.
Okay, fuck her anyway. I don't like her.
That was before she became a murderer. That was what she was making money doing.
Yeah, right. All right. So what about you, brother? You got anything extra and unusual to plug?
No, like Benny said, the Dan and Benny in the Ring every Tuesday. We go live on audio, and then anywhere podcasts can be listened to. And of course, we're uploaded Monty and the Pharaoh show starting on Wednesdays. And I mean, we just did episode 160. So we're chugging along, coming up on usually about WrestleMania seasons when we decide to reset. So we're coming up on season 5. So it should be a lot of fun.
All right.
Nice.
Chris, got anything you want to plug on?
I have no other shows. The only show I do.
I know, much to my dismay, but yeah, this is the only show that you do, team player. And then, of course, you can catch Ghosted every Monday right here on the Antisocial Network and the Monty and the Pharaoh Network. Myself, Doug Damien, we review spooky ghost videos, and we usually call them out for being the bullshit that they are, but sometimes one sneaks through, and they seem very real, and we give it the credit. Okay, well, guys, thanks for hanging out. Y'all are always welcome to come party with us again. Chris, you got anything fun you want to say?
Yeah, fuck off, Rob.
Hey,